I'm super excited. This is a brother I've known for a couple years, and he has a fantastic heart, a fantastic story, a fantastic ministry that he's grown and continues to grow and continues to explode. And we're going to get a lot of really good information from him today. So ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, if you're streaming, you already see him. Jeff Morris from the Jordan.
What's up, everybody? What's up? Good to be here with y'all.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do? Where are you from?
Yeah, man. My name is Jeff Morris. Originally born in San Diego. Moved up to the Northwest when I was like 10. Lived there for like 20 some years, where I met my wife and started doing ministry up there. Had 3 kids. I've got 3 kids. I've got a 14-year-old. I know that you guys looking on Facebook Live doesn't look like I'm that old, but I got 3 kids. One's 13, one is 11, and one is 10, about to be 10, 12, and 14 because their birthday's in October. But been married for coming up on 16 years.
Yeesh.
And doing this ministry thing and entrepreneur thing for a long time now, dude.
Yeah. Now you're creative. I consider
for sure.
creative.
Yeah.
Like a chief creative.
Yeah.
You're not necessarily, well, you probably do just a little bit of design.
I do some video and some different stuff on my own, but nothing like.
You stepped
crazy.
in 5 years ago. North Coast is a church that's pretty big. I think that's our biggest church. Even in North County.
North County, San Diego.
North County, San Diego. You stepped in, you took over a ministry that I used to go to when I was a kid.
Oh, for real?
When I was in college.
Wow.
Called the Jordan.
Yeah.
And the Jordan kind of fell off for a while. And then all this, like you stopped hearing about it. And then all of a sudden, it was just this monster of a ministry out of like nowhere. And I was like, what the heck is going on? And I had met you behind the scenes through Sean on Think International TV. We had did an interview years ago.
Years ago, dude.
And then I felt, Jeff is okay. And you took that ministry from what to what?
It started off when I showed up, May 2011. We were running around like between 60 and 80 on a Thursday night.
60 to 80.
60 to 80 people in attendance. And then, and now we're 500 plus on a Thursday.
So you're bigger than the average church.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And that's just 18 to 25 year olds. We like we don't have any like mid 30s. We're not like counting.
It's not the singles ministry.
It's not the singles ministry. We're not like counting like, kids in the kids ministry or anything. That's just like in a room at one time together. It's pretty incredible. Yeah. Unreal. Oh. Yeah. We, one of the things like when I first showed up to that ministry, it was an unhealthy ministry that thought it was healthy. And I don't know, like, for those of you guys listening out there, if you've ever had something, or maybe you've started something or took over a business or stepped into a management position, you're like, and they think that they're healthy. They think that everything's good and popping because, there's maybe some good feelings or whatnot that are there for the time, but it were incredibly unhealthy because it wasn't growing. There wasn't any new life coming in. And so it's interesting to come in and try to take something over that's sick, but doesn't know it's sick.
Why grow?
But why grow?
So, hey man, I'm an artist. I'm a starving artist. I'm supposed to be poor.
For sure.
Hey, I'm preaching the gospel. If you're preaching the gospel, your church is only supposed to be 60 people.
Right.
And you're going to go through the book of Exodus verse by verse all year long. Why grow something? What's the point?
What's the point? Well, I think, part of it too, like the reason why grow is, and we'll probably hit this later, but who the Lord has made you as a leader or as an entrepreneur. If he's made you someone that will grow something, then you can't help it. You can't help but like want to make things grow and see bigger and see better for whatever it is that you're entering, whether it's business, ministry, music, whatever. But I think the reason why grow is because the message is worth it.
Say that again.
The reason why grow is because the message is worth it. And for me as a pastor, for me as a ministry lead and whatnot, I have the greatest message in the world. And why keep that to just a few,
right?
And so I think it's incredibly important that, I use whatever is at my disposal to take this message beyond, further than, I guess, the whole idea, I want to hit that, the whole idea like selling out, like, you're selling out, like if your church is bigger, you're watering down the message and whatnot. I don't think it's you're watering down the message. I just think you're making it more palatable. Because if only 60 people can understand your message is whack. If only a few people want to listen to your music, like in a basement somewhere, you're not that good.
Yeah.
And if you look at as far as like artists who have taken it from small to big, it's because their music, their message, all of it was worth more people hearing it. You know, like I remember, you know, because I was from, you know, Seattle, like watching YouTube videos of like Macklemore playing to like audiences of like 15 in like a little house somewhere. And then, you know, now he plays to like audiences of like, you know, 15,000 like on the daily because his music and his message was worth something and it got out there. And I think for whatever it is that you're putting your heart and your soul into, you know, your business, music, you know, for me, ministry, whatnot, I think the message is worth it. So I want to get it out there. And so I think growth, things that are healthy grow.
Okay.
You know?
But don't you have to compromise?
No, I don't think so. I think it depends on your definition of compromise.
Okay.
And I think that, you know, there is I think there's something romantic about the starving artist, but I think that's only romantic because when you play that out, you know, like I got 3 kids, they need to eat, you know, like, and if I'm putting everything into my art and putting everything into my creativity, but I'm starving, there begs the question, are you really good at it? Because again, I think anything that's worth it is going to make it out there. Now, if you're continually holding it back, you know, so that you're stopping it from going to the masses, well, for one, if it's your art and your creativity, that's your own deal, that's your own gig.
Yeah.
But if it's the gospel, then you're completely ignoring the Great Commission because we're supposed to be going out and making disciples of all nations.
Yep.
And I don't think you do water it down. I think you just make it more palatable for people to hear it. But I see like it's the.
And it's not like you're compromising the message.
No, dude, but you're just messing with the methods. And I think today we've got more methods than ever before to get that message out.
Right. The method, right?
Yeah, for
we
sure.
get so caught up in the method, right? Because we think the message then dictates how the method is executed.
Right, for
When in
sure.
reality, you can take a age-old message, an age-old product, repackage it different,
Completely.
rebrand it different, and then all of a sudden it's cool and relevant.
Exactly.
Starbucks,
Yeah,
right?
for
Starbucks
sure.
took something that prior to it stepping back into the game, coffee was not as mass market as it was.
No,
They
dude.
took it, they rebranded it, they made it cool, they made it about community.
Yep.
Boom, coffee is mass market.
Yeah.
They hit totally different demos,
Yeah.
and now it's mass market.
Exactly.
right?
And the funny thing is, side note, I just want to say that because I know that like, you know, coffee and like, you know, cool coffee shops and stuff are all the rage right now and everyone's hating on Starbucks, but Starbucks is the one that paved the way,
100%.
you know, for all of them to have these little spots now.
Right.
Like everyone wants to drink craft coffee.
Right.
Same thing like with craft beer, you know, like you have like Stone and all these people that really kind of made a way for people to really enjoy a different thing. You know, any brand that's lasted a long time has continually reinvented themselves.
That's good.
Any artist that has lasted a long time has continually reinvented themselves. I mean, look at U2.
Yeah.
I mean, they're still selling out packed out stadiums because like if you listen to their first album and you listen to their last album, it's different.
Right.
Madonna, same thing.
Yep.
You know, and I think that in the church we can get so stale with how we present the gospel, with how we run our services, and you know, all in the name of trying to preserve the gospel.
Right.
When man, Jesus in his day was doing stuff new that nobody else was doing.
Right. And everything is contextualized to some culture.
Exactly, for
right?
sure.
So if you're saying I want it this way and I want it right, I want to do hymns. Why don't we sing more hymns at the Jordan?
Right,
Jeff?
yeah.
Well, because hymns aren't relevant to 2016.
Exactly.
Right. Hymns were relevant to 1616.
For sure.
Right.
For
They
sure.
were
Yeah,
popping
totally.
then.
Totally.
Now they're not popping.
Yeah.
Totally.
So let's contextualize to what's happening
Yeah.
today, adjusting, tweaking that method
Exactly.
to reach more.
And I think a lot of it is mainly just, it's all culture. It's not really like, people are arguing about how the message or the method is being conveyed and think it's not being true to the scripture, but it's really, there are people just being culturally ignorant.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
And then anything new, like, it's also scary, I think. So that's why it's hard to get into new cultural things.
See, culture is incredibly important on growing anything. Like one, you have to understand, like you're talking about the context of the culture that you're in, and you create a culture within that context. So to break that down would be, so within the Jordan, it's a very Southern California vibe, very Southern California feel. You know, everything that we do when it comes down to our media, our events, examples I use in the message, it's very Southern California because we're Southern California.
You know your audience.
I know my audience. And so we've created a culture in the context of our greater culture.
Right.
And again, what a lot of times we fail to do in ministry is we try to create a culture in the context of like the Bible Belt culture.
Right.
So we're trying to do church, because that's the way they do it in Texas. Well, how they do it in Texas isn't going to equate to how they do it out here.
Right. Right.
Or
how they did it 20 years ago.
20 years ago
is not going to work today.
And exactly. You have to know the area in which you live, and you really have to have a pulse on it. If you're going to be a successful entrepreneur, building a business, whatever, you have to have a pulse on the culture that you're trying to reach.
Let's talk about environment a little bit in terms of reaching culture. You guys do things intentionally in environment. And I remember we had this conversation. We were doing a ministry at the movement, a young adult thing at the movement years ago, and you told me how you guys were intentional, not just about culture, not just about the speaking or the music. You were actually intentional about how the room felt.
The room felt, the atmosphere, completely.
Yeah.
Completely. And that's because with this generation today, they've grown up being marketed to. Like when I was a kid and when I went like school clothes shopping, like JCPenney, like the department store with the nasty lights playing the elevator music over there. But that's all we had. That's all it was.
Yeah.
Well, now these kids have grown up going to like Urban Outfitters and all these places that are like incredibly intentional about what that place looks like, how the layout is, what it smells like, everything. And so I've ripped off, billions of dollars of, market research from all of these major companies and said, how can I translate that into a room for, a night of ministry? And so the way that we set our chairs up, to the music that you hear when you walk in, to the way the room is lit, where we place our people, everything is so intentional because that atmosphere. See, people subconsciously know within the first 5 minutes if this is somewhere they want to stay or not. Like we've all walked into that restaurant and been like, oh, this place is sick. I'm going to hang out here. This is rad. Or that coffee shop or whatnot. Or we've walked into that store and we're like, I'm going to pay an extra $10, $15 for this shirt, even though I can probably get it cheaper somewhere else, but I just love this vibe and I love this spot. Well, you've also walked into places and been like, I never want to come back here again. Like, the coffee may be good, but like, I'm not going to sit here and chill, So I want people to walk into our ministry and, from the people to the sounds to the way it looks, everything, think like, I want to hang out here.
Yeah. How do you apply this if you're smaller?
For sure.
If you're, just starting out.
For sure.
How does this look?
Well, I think you just got to take advantage of whatever resources you have. So when we were smaller, when we were like, 80 people, we met in the most hideous of rooms at our church before it was like, it's since been remodeled.
Because you guys' room now is lit.
It's lit.
It's
super lit.
potentially the dopest venue in North County.
It's pretty
San
sick.
Diego.
Yeah, exactly.
We got to do a Dream Junkie show there. Or
For
something.
sure. Soon. Another one. Soon. But yeah, like we were meeting in this thing, they called it the Video Cafe. They've since remodeled and stuff. But it was the room that like Larry, our senior pastor, was hated bringing people in because it was like the eyesore of the whole campus. And like here we are trying to grow a ministry in it, full of young adults that are all about atmosphere and whatnot. Yeah. So we just kind of, we'd set our chairs up in a cool vibe. We would like, we set up black curtains to cover up this nasty painted on coffee cup. It was a steaming coffee cup that said Video Cafe, like painted, and the walls were beige. Oh, it was horrible. I'm serious, no joke, dude. It was horrible. So we covered that up with like black curtains and hung like Edison light bulbs off of it, and like just dimmed the room just perfect. Took advantage of the lights that we had, but really what started making it was the leaders that I had. Because I'm a big fan of you build a kingdom by building people. You build your business or you build your brand by building people, by pouring into people.
Yeah, good.
And so I started working with James, Kaylee. Andrew Pulfer was already from the band Love Light, was leading worship for us. He's already, incredible artist and whatnot. But I just started working with them, and from like their attitudes and the stuff that they began to create, I began to work with James on graphics and some video stuff. It just shifted the room just a little bit, which then allowed us to gain some momentum, which then once we had that momentum, we were then able to get into, the room that we meet in now. But I think like most people make the biggest mistakes in their rooms with their chair setup and the way they fill the space. because like we moved into the Edge seats 500 to 600. When we moved in there, we had 150 people. But the way that we set it up, and this is all room dynamics and stuff and whatnot. Now, I help people with it. I go and consult at churches about this, but the room dynamics is huge but we had it so like set up in such a way to where people would be like, man, there must be like 300-400 people here. And I'm like, yeah, that's right. Yeah, we're slamming. But like, it's just the way that if you can shrink a room,
right.
And fill that dead space, it creates that energy.
Yep. Yeah, and that's something that we've applied even doing certain shows. We'll go into like a smaller market and we're like, dude, this is going to be a rough night. There'll be 30, 40 people there,
Right.
But we'll figure out a way, hey, let's do it in the smallest possible room. Let's make sure that we're all greeting people the moment they're walking in. So here are the headliners.
Yeah, totally.
Standing there, meeting, shaking every single person's hand as they're coming in.
Yeah.
The different music playing, so it's not like turn up church rap music. The vibe is different. You know what I mean? And so they're walking into this environment, and it's like, okay, like this isn't the biggest concert,
right?
But this feels cool.
It feels cool, and it's a great experience.
Right.
And like anywhere you go for the first time, like they're judging you off that.
Right.
So like you just gave them an incredible show.
Right.
You're now probably one of their favorite hip hop artists because of that.
Right.
Whereas if you're in the big room, you're not really saying hi, and like you come out on stage and you're all live and jumping around, and there's like 30 people in a room that seats 400, everybody's gonna be like, this is lame.
Yeah.
Nobody's here, and these guys are, you could just put on the best show of your life, but because of those room dynamics, they hated it.
Right.
Or they walk away disappointed or whatnot. And that's like, for us, we want every event we throw, we know that we're setting it up for the next event. So that everything we do has to be quality.
Yeah.
We can't be like, hey, we're gonna do an after party. So let's just grill some burgers and play some music. Well, if they show up to that, it's dumb. You can get that anywhere.
Right.
But if, hey, we're gonna throw an after party, but they show up and we've got tarp surfing, we've got a live DJ. We've got, different station where people can tie-dye tank tops. And like there's all this stuff going on that really creates a rad atmosphere. Then the next time we say, hey, we're going to throw an after party, they're like, oh, you can't miss that.
Yep.
You can't miss that. Next time you're rolling into town, you're going to have a show. They're like, you can't miss that.
Right.
Sickest show ever.
Right. That's good. I hope you guys are taking notes.
As for growth, do you think it's possible that people are meant to not grow?
Ooh, that's a good question.
That's a great question. Yeah, I think that certain people have ceilings for sure.
Yeah.
And I think that's where, you can't, there's the story of the talents in the Bible. One he gave 1, 2, and then 5, and the one that had 5, made it to 10. The one that had 2 made it to 4, and the one got scared and buried, and so on and so forth. But like some people get 2, and some people get 5, and some people can handle that growth, and their mind can go there, and they can dream that big, and other people they just can't. And that's no knock on them, but that's where it just kind of comes and we're like, okay, well, know who you are and stay in your lane.
Yeah.
And rock it.
And I think that's a great question, because I think for me, the issue, my heart is always like stewardship.
For sure.
Like I want to be the best possible steward with what God has given me.
Yeah.
My personal gifts, my relational gifts, my social gifts, like my marriage, my friendships, the amount of money I can make, the amount of money I do make, the amount of money I can make. Like I want to be the very, very, very best steward. So I think for me, there are certain people that like, they just don't have that entrepreneurial spirit. They just don't have that thing. They're just, man, they're fantastic Bible teachers.
Right.
And they can do the illest, like, verse by verse text ever. And with the right team, man, it'll grow and it'll be 100-person, 200-person thing. And that's like, dude, that's sweet. My thing is like, dude, for my music, my art, what I've been given, like I'm irresponsible and I'm a bad steward if I don't go all in and just go after it. I'm disobedient to the Lord.
Exactly.
And I think that the hard part and the lame part is when there's that vibe. There's the guy who can only get to 100 or 200 that then points to the guy that's popping and says, well, you're not doing it right.
Right, exactly.
You're
For
compromising.
I think consistent growth is going to be evidence of like stewardship across the board, but I don't think your growth ever has to be like astronomical. Like it might be very, very slow growth, but that means you're definitely where you're supposed to be. If you're stagnant, then I think that's when you have to reevaluate.
I think slow growth is healthy growth.
Yeah, for sure.
But that comes down to, again, stewardship is you want to figure out if sitting right at that 100 mark or that 80 mark or whatever, is that where you're supposed to be? Is that like, if you created a community for believers or, you know, or your business or whatever, that's what you're about.
Right.
But if you know that there's something more you could do, then I think you really need to wrestle with, okay, am I being a healthy steward?
Right.
And there's a huge difference out there, because I know like everyone talks about potential, and you got so much potential. There's a difference between potential and stewardship.
Okay, explain that.
Well, so you can have a ton of potential that you can go all in and all for, right? To where you could have potential to be, you know, multi-platinum, you know, artist, right?
Sure.
But your stewardship is going to keep you from reaching that full potential, because you have a wife and you've got a kid,
right?
And that now, like, I'll never reach my full potential because I'm a husband with 3 kids.
Right.
If I was single and able to run and do what I do, then I could probably reach my full potential.
Yeah.
I would work myself, you know, 20 hours a day, you know, nonstop, crazy stuff. But like we even talking about, like, you know, some of my side hustle, like I'm not doing that as much because, you know, I get home from work at 5, 6 o'clock, dinner's on the table, and I'm going to hang with my family, you know. And
that's not a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing. That's stewardship.
That's stewardship.
That's stewardship.
So, this is so good. So if you're the guy, how do you see? There's 2 things I want to ask. One, the right combination of talent, competence, character,
right? Yeah,
and chemistry, the ability to work with other people, right? Why is that so difficult to find? Like, why aren't there as many people, or why is there seldom? Because I've been around a lot of ministries and I've been around a lot of churches, and seldom do you find someone that has like, dude, this dude is a rad speaker, but he loves and shepherds people.
Right.
He has a business acumen, and he gets this is a brand.
Right.
I'm telling a story. I'm selling a product. Right. Like, you don't come across too many of those people. I know, like Chris Durso in New York, Misfit NYC. I think of those guys. I think of mega church pastors and all that kind of stuff. Right. But you don't come across. Do you think that's DNA, or do you think that is nurturing environment? Do you think, you know what I mean? Like, what do you think that is? Like, when you just find that like perfect combination where you can take a ministry from 60 to 500 without compromising the gospel, without being a crappy leader. I almost cussed. You know what I mean? Like, and loving people well, and not compromising in any of those areas, and not compromising your family.
Right. Like,
is that DNA? Is that just experience? Like,
I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's DNA. I think it is experience. So I'd say yes to both. But I think too, it's I was a part of an unhealthy thing for a long time, where I just gave myself, and I was applauded for it, and I saw the unhealth, and so I think part of it is just learning what not to do, like learning what to do by seeing and learning what not to do, right? Experiencing that, and being able to pull back and saying, okay, you know, like, yeah, maybe the ministry right now could be bigger, you know, but my kids wouldn't be as happy. Like, my kids love the church; they love it.
Yeah.
You know, they love coming to church, they love being a part of it. And so, and that's like my goal. So maybe we could be 700. Maybe we could have, you know, 3 Jordans going on right now. But there's certain things that I pull back from, or maybe I could be doing this plus a major side hustle. Yeah. But I want to be well rested for my family, you know? Yeah. And so I think some of it's DNA, but I think also too, some of it is just, so, you know, like you, and I'm sure like you guys do, I listen to a lot of, you know, different like leadership podcasts and different leaders and whatnot. And
this is a leadership podcast.
Yeah, like this one right here. I'm going to listen to this one later. There we go.
Subscribe on iTunes.
and I think there becomes a real draw, or a real danger of wanting to be like the person you're listening to.
Yeah. I mean, because let's be real. Yeah. Everybody wants to be Judah Smith right now.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
everybody's chasing that guy to do the great expository biblical teaching.
Yeah, exactly.
Rooted in solid theology, but super funny, charismatic, and leading a mega church.
But you're not going to get there unless you know your role, because like it's everyone's gifted with something unique and which they're gonna be most efficient in.
Right. Well, but so like there's thing where you listen to like a Gary Vaynerchuk and you're like, that guy works 24/7. You're like, I need to work 24/7. I need to be, you know, and he's wired like that, you know. and there's a lot of things too that of behind the scenes of these, these great leaders that you don't know.
Yep.
That like, I won't get into stuff, but anyway, so like, and the other thing too, I'd say is this, like, I just listened to this thing. It's called like something School of Greatness or something like that. And Rob Dyrdek was Fantasy Factory and all that stuff. So he's being interviewed. I'm listening to all this stuff. He's, like all this stuff he had going on, all this stuff he was doing. And like, I find myself going like, and he's talking about this daily regimen that he goes through. And I'm like, oh man, maybe I need to start a daily regimen. Maybe I need to wake up and like start writing stuff down of all this. But then I'm like, that's not me.
Right.
Like I'm not that, record every little thing, do all that little stuff.
Yeah.
And I think there's too many leaders out there that if they just be themselves, they would kill it. But there's trying to be too many other people.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Eric.
I think that's going to take a lot of patience for sure, though.
Oh, for sure.
If you're going to take the method that you said, like learn what not to do, that means you're going to have to be cool with making a lot of mistakes and then learning from the mistakes, which means a lot of experience, a lot of time, investment into yourself and figuring that out.
You got to know you. Yep. Like, to bring it to a biblical example, like when King David is going out to fight Goliath, and he goes to Saul, he's like, hey man, I've killed a lion, I've killed a bear, I can kill this giant, and finally convinces Saul. So Saul's like, all right, fine. So he puts his armor, Saul's armor, puts it on David, right? David's a shepherd boy. So David's walking out. Everyone thinks like he was a little kid, so he couldn't wear this armor. But what it says in the Bible is that he couldn't go in them because he wasn't used to them. He wasn't used to wearing armor. He wasn't used to doing any of that. So too many people are out there trying to wear other people's armor.
That's good.
As opposed to picking up their shepherd staff and their bag and going to work.
That's good. So I want to get to the self-awareness part because I think that's huge. But young guys at an advantage, right? Young guys don't got a wife, don't got any kids, right? Are they at an advantage to say, dude, forget it. Like, I'm just going to do my own thing and I'm going to go after it and I'm going to go serve with Jeff, but I'm going to go start my own Bible study. You know what I mean? I'm just going to go after it. And they're 21, 22 years old. Are they at an advantage to potentially crush it and do I'm going to hustle for 18 hours and bust my tail and build my own thing? Maybe they're taking your messages and they're on YouTube dissecting them and giving like little, whatever it is, right? They're starting a vlog as an extension of the journey. Like, are those guys at an advantage?
If they want to remain single, yeah.
Okay.
Tell me more. If they're cool with, just going all into that for a long, because when you're 21, 22, if you're cool with that, then rock that. Yeah. But it's going to take you out of a lot of social circles and a lot of social dynamics and stuff because of that. But
what if you're intentionally documenting social circles?
But here's the other thing though too with that. They're kind of at a disadvantage because most 21, 22-year-olds aren't as educated enough. And there's a little bit of a lacking of maturity sometimes within that.
And a lacking of character.
And a lacking of character. Yep. And I'm a big fan of, like, man, if I could go back and talk to my 26-year-old self, as I'm 38 now, but like if I could go back and talk to my 26-year-old self, I'm 38, bro. Oh my goodness. I know I look good, huh?
Man, I gotta start surfing or something. Can I go surf with you?
Yeah, dude, because come surf with me, dude.
He's like nicely tan. The hair looks all clean.
Oh man,
skinny. But go ahead.
But yeah, so if I could go back and just and maybe coach myself a little bit more on patience. Yep. And on like this thing's a marathon, it's not a sprint.
Yeah.
And back then I was running a sprint and I was trying to, explode the ministry fast and do all this stuff. And I pushed myself and I pushed people too hard. If
you were the Steve Jobs of ministry.
Oh, I was, bro. I was gnarly, and it's funny. Like I tell my staff this now. Like I was kind of gnarly, back in the day, and so that's why I tend to not be as gnarly now. But yeah, I was a little bit crazy. And there was a switch that happened when all of a sudden I was like, wait a minute, I'm in this to build. Like I want to make these people better than me, so I'm going to do whatever I can to make them greater, to make them more, to really lift them up. Yeah. And man, I'm telling you, once I started doing more of that and trying to make their dreams happen. Yep. Our ministry took off.
Wow.
Because if you are working with people that they love you and they trust you, like then you have relational leadership as opposed to positional leadership.
Woo. What's the difference?
Positional leadership, people are going to listen to you because they have to.
You have a title.
Because you have a title, and they'll give you, I don't know, 90%. But If you have relational leadership, people are going to listen to you because they love you and they believe in your vision and your dream as well, and they're going to give you 150%.
Wow. Thank you so much for checking out this podcast. If you haven't, please subscribe on the podcast app. If you're listening on SoundCloud, follow us on SoundCloud. And if you're into the YouTube thing, we do that as well, the video. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube.
Sugar in the raw, elevation high, low key, we're taking off. Nothing here familiar, west up, it's the law.